Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. Senators and Chinese diplomats. One Senate leader even sat down with Beijing's ambassador to talk about diplomacy and a code of conduct for the West Philippine Sea.
The prosecution charges Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of murder and attempted murder as a crimes against humanity committed between 2013 and around June 2016 and between around July 2016 and September 2018 in the Republic of the Philippines as follows. Count 1. Murder of 19 victims alleged to be criminals, including 3 children, who were killed in or around Davao City in the Philippines between 2013 and around 2016 by members of the Davao Death Squad, while Mr. Duterte was the mayor of the Davao City pursuant to Article 71A of the Rome Statute. Count 2. Murder of 14 victims labeled as high-value targets for their alleged criminality, who were killed in locations across the Philippines between around July 2016 and July 2017 by a network of perpetrators comprising state actors and others, referred to as the National Network, while Mr. Duterte was the president of the Philippines pursuant to Article 71A of the Rome Statute. And count 3. Murder and attempted murder of 45 victims, comprising 43 murders and 2 attempted murders of persons alleged to be criminals, including 3 children who were targeted in barangay clearance operations in locations across the Philippines.
At 5 this afternoon,
I'm here right now at the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Netherlands, wherein the confirmation of charges of former President Rodrigo Duterte is happening right now. Day 1, actually, no, nagkaroon po ng, of course, yung House rules muna, no, nagsimula ang hearing, and then reading of charges, and of course, opening statement from the prosecution, from the counsel of the victims, and of course, happening right now, yung opening statement from the defense. But right now, before we proceed, kasama ko ngayon, Ces and Sean, si Attorney Sal Panelo, ang miyembro ng Filipino Legal Council ni former President Rodrigo Duterte, para bigyan tayo ng kaunting pahayag doon sa nangyari kanina. Attorney, ito po. Good morning po sa inyo. Actually, good afternoon na dito pala sa The Hague. So, what is your reaction doon po sa naging opening statement, most specifically ng counsel for the victims?
Yung pong mga sinabi nung abogado ng mga biktima, pati na yung prosecutor.
Mhm.
Yun ay parang paulit-ulit na propagandang matagal na nilang naratibo yon na batay sa haka-haka, batay sa hearsay na tinatawag, batay sa mga aligasyon na wala namang ebidensya.
Well, Attorney Butuyan reiterated there in his statement how powerful the Dutertes are, stating na ang Vice President ay mismong anak ng Pangulo, na may intensyon na tumakbo sa pagiging Pangulo. Mga anak niya ay nasa politika din, na kapag hindi na confirm ang charges ay delikado ang buhay ng mga biktima ng war on drugs. Your thoughts on that?
Unang-una, irrelevant naman yung kandidatura ni Inday Sara Duterte. Wala namang kinalaman yan dito sa kaso ito. Pangalawa, sinasabi niyang makapangyarihan, powerful pa. Sa lahat naman ng makapangyarihan, nakakulong siya ngayon.
Okay. Alright, dun po sa naging kaunting pahayag na naabutan natin kay attorney lawyer Nicholas Kaufman, reiterate po niya doon na kakaibang ang karakter ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Totoo po yan in the sense na kasi si Presidente Duterte mahilig sa hyperbole yung tinatawag, yung nag-exaggerate siya. At ginagamit naman ng mga kalaban niya yan. Pero palagi nilang tinatakasan yung kabuuan ng kanyang mga payag. Gaya nung ko pa sinasabi, and natuwa naman ako, kinote niya kanina yung sinabi ni Presidente Duterte, na itong prosecution, parang pinapakita lang nila na itong mga sinasabi ni Presidente Duterte i-enforce yung batas na ang kinahinatan nga yung maraming napatay ang mga pulis. Pero kinakalimutan nila kasi sinasabi nila, siya mismo sabi, patayin niyo. Ano mga sinasabi ni Presidente Duterte. Pero kinakalimutan nila doon sa SONA, yun ang kanyang policy statement from the very beginning. Sabi niya, I will support you with all the resources of the office of the president. But if you abuse your authority, there will be hell to pay. Iyon ang basis niya eh. Patayin nyo kung ang buhay nyo ay nanganganib. At yun naman ang nangyari.
Okay. So far, okay sa inyo yung... Yes.
A question.
Yes, go ahead, Sen.
Good
Yes.
Good evening to you, Attorney Panelo from Manila. A powerful presentation there by Joel Butuyan, who is counsel for the victims. He said that truth is the antidote to the virus of impunity. Itong impunity ay kumakalat anya at nagkakaroon ng mga mini Dutertes at Duterte clones. Kaya ang solusyon daw dito, ayon sa kanya, ay ihayag ang bigyang pagkakataon ang mga biktima na ihayag ang kanilang narrative.
Yung sinasabi niyang virus of impunity, I think he's referring to the virus of lies that they and he, people like him, have propagated all these years against the former president. Silang kailangan bakunahan ng katotohanan at hindi yung kapinan.
At ayon din sa prosecution, ay may mga insiders sila na maglalahad kung ano ang ginawa doon po sa kapulisan. Mismong mga parte ng DDS halimbawa. Ano po ang kasagutan nyo doon?
Yun naman pong mga sinasabi nila, matagal na nating narinig yun. At puro naman yun, batay sa wala silang personal na knowledge, o kung hindi naman, yun ay gawa-gawa lamang ng mga binayarang testigo o mga testigong may sama ng loob kay Presidente Duterte.
Attorney Panelo, hello, si Sean Puto, magandang gabi. Narinig ko rin yung pahayag naman ni Attorney Kaufman, yung defense counsel ni dating Presidente Duterte. Ang sinasabi niya parang basically laying down the context just like what you're saying. Tayo kasi dito, sanay tayo sa rhetoric ni dating Presidente Duterte, pero yung mga tao dyan, hindi. Ang tanong, do you think explaining the context of the Duterte rhetoric will actually have an effect on the court?
Ayun ang hindi natin malalaman kasi hindi naman natin nababasa ang isipin ng mga hukuman. Pero alam po niyo, gusto ko i-list ng konti. Para sa akin kasi ngayon, yung hearing na ito, irrelevant ito eh. Dapat ang concentration ay jurisdiction. Kasi parang pinapangunahan mo na, wala ka pa nga jurisdiction, di mo pa nare-resolve. Bakit nagbibista ka na? Yun ang gusto kong sana marinig sa defense. Question this court why it has assumed jurisdiction and it has set hearings when it has not finally resolved the issue of jurisdiction, specifically the doctrine of principle of complementarity. Lahat ng member ng Estado, ng ICC, ay hindi sila pwedeng pumasok. Yan ang sinasabi ng batas nila. Pakakapasok lang sila kung walang kakayahan ang bansang miyembro. Sobrang kakayahan na po natin pinakita. Pinakulong natin ng libo-libong mga kriminal. 2 presidente ang pinakulong natin. 2 senador ang pinakulong natin. Isang presidente, sinipa natin. Dahil mga nagkabit ng krimen laban sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Bakit sila nakikialam? Isang kaso na kinamit yung ng isang Pilipino, laban sa Pilipino at ginawa sa Pilipinas, pero dayuhan ang lumilitis, dayuhan ang pakulong sa kanya ngayon. Of course,
Attorney
with the
Panelo,
cooperation of this administration.
hindi po ba nag-rule na dyan ang ICC?
No, I disagree. What you're referring to is the jurisdiction raised by the defense that since we have already withdrawn, you have no more jurisdiction, which was opposed by the prosecution by saying, no, you have residual obligation because we investigated prior to your withdrawal. Mali po yun. Yung parting yun, secondary defense lang yun. Ang dapat mo munang i-resolve, meron bang kakayahan ang bansang Pilipinas nung ito'y miyembro pa? O wala. Hindi nila nare-resolve yan. Pumunta kagad sila doon sa umatras kami. Walang jurisdiction. Pero yung sinasabi nila, nag-imbestiga daw sila prior to the withdrawal. Mali po yun. Kasi ang iniimbestigahan po nila noon, hindi yung preliminary investigation as contemplated by the Rome Statute. Ang iniimbestigahan nila, kung may kakayahan ba ang bansang Pilipinas na mag-usig ng mga kriminal. Dahil kung wala, papasok kami. Hindi nga ho nila na-resolve yun from the very beginning.
It was also brought up by the prosecution that our own Justice Secretary and Ombudsman said that it is impossible to try the case here in the Philippines.
Hindi po totoo yun. Dahil gaya na sinabi ko, kung totoo yung sinasabi nila, bakit tayo nakapakulong ng libo-libong mga kriminal? Bakit tayo nakapakulong ng 2 presidente? Bakit tayo nakapakulong ng 2 senador? Ang problema po sa kanila, sinasabi nila na si Duterte hindi mausig ng panahon na siya presidente. Tama sila kasi may immunity. Pero 3 taon na pong bumaba. Wala silang ginagawa. Hindi sila nag-prosecute. Nung tinanong ang Department of Justice, bakit hindi nyo dinimanda? 3 taon na kayo. Ang sagot po nila ay wala silang ebidensya. So kung walang ebidensya, bakit mo isinuko sa bansang dayuhan para litisin ang isang Pilipino?
Dahil po ang
If I may
ebidensya ay nabura na.
Yun. I was gonna say that. If I may add to what Seth said, ang sinasabi nila, walang police report, walang DNA, walang evidence.
Hindi totoo yun. Hindi totoo. Alam niyo po, yung nagsasalitang yan, siya isa sa mga kasabwat ng pagpapakulong at pag-aresto kay Presidente Duterte. Kaya ganyan ang kanilang naratiba. Pinagtatanggol nila ang kanilang mga sarili.
Panghuli na lamang po, Attorney Panelo, hindi po kayo mabibigyan ng pagkakataon na tumayo sa harap ng korte, kundi bilang observers lamang. Ano po ba ang magiging role ng Filipino legal counsels ng dating Pangulo?
Sa ngayon kami nag-o-observe lang kasi create yung legal team ngayon lang. So wala pang, para kami makapasok dyan, kailangan maging miyembro kami ng defense at magpa-accredit. At pag pumayag, makakarap.
Ano naman ang masasabi nyo sa opening statement ni Attorney Kaufman? Kayo ba ay panig sa kanyang mga argumento? O
Gaya
kulang
na sinabi ko po,
O
gaya
kulang?
sa sinabi ko sa mga naunang nagtanong sa akin, yung pong nilatag ng prosecution, pati nung abogado ng biktima, ay isa-isang sinagot ni Attorney Kaufman. Walang punto na hindi niya sinagot at tama naman lahat ng kasagot.
So you're happy naman?
Madali sabi, pinasinungalingan niya lahat ng aligasyon laban kay Presidente Duterte.
So in your assessment, the opening statement of Attorney Kaufman went well?
Of course. Sinagot niya na punto by punto, it went well.
And have you guys, the five of you, the lawyers, no, malalapit po kayo, no, sa dating president.
Six of us.
Sorry,
Six
six
of
of
us.
you guys. You're all also close friends of the former president. Are you also there to provide Attorney Kaufman and the defense team with some context or any additional information? May ganun po bang plano na mag-meet?
Una-una, kami yun nandito dahil kaibigan nga kami, ibig namin bigyan ng moral support. Assist, create ng legal team the day before we came here. Kasi on our own talagang pupunta kami rito para bigyan bilang mga kaibigan. And the family decided na magkaroon ng isang legal team. So ang gagawin namin, after observing kung anong narinig namin, meeting ko kami mamaya or after the 5-day or 4-day hearings, and then kikipag-usap na kami sa defense ni Presidente Duterte para mabigay namin sa kanila yung aming mga insights.
All right, so in about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes, babalik po kayo sa
Yes,
korte.
babalik.
Yeah.
Yes. Pagkatapos kumain. Kahit hindi makakain dahil nandito kami sa iyo.
Pasensya naman. Maraming salamat sa inyong
Salamat din.
pagganon ng inyong gutom.
Pero I want
Thank
to
you.
ask you, maybe last po, have you talked to, when was the last time you talked to the Duterte family and of course the former president?
Nung nasa Hong Kong,
Yun na yun.
nagtawayan lang kami, hindi kami nagkausap.
Okay. Yung family po niya, any of the members?
Si BP Inday, yung kausap kami before I came.
Oo. Here, ano
Hindi,
po sabi
actually,
niya?
text lang, hindi nga, or,
Nag-usapan niyo?
hindi, sinabi niya lang, may seat ako sa gallery.
Yun lang. Okay. Alright, meron pa po ba kayong tanong, Ces and Sean?
We thank you, Angela, for
Okay.
your update. And we'll
Okay.
see you in a while. That was One News
Saka nga
anchor,
pala,
Angela Lagunsad Castro, reporting to us live from the ICC in The Hague. Now we head to Davao City, where family and supporters of former President Rodrigo Duterte are still monitoring events over at The Hague. Let's get updates. No watch party. What will you call it? Gathering. Courtroom watch.
Courtroom watch.
Maybe. No?
Okay. So while we would want to bring you, of course, more developments from The Hague, we'll fix that connection with Brel Montalvo. Of course, in The Hague, the confirmation of charges hearing of former President Rodrigo Duterte will be resuming any moment now. But before that, impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte have been forwarded to the House Justice Committee. And soon we will know if the cases are sufficient in form and substance and if the VP will be going to trial. The big story.
Story is back with news of 4 impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte already endorsed to the House Justice Committee. This means the ouster proceedings are deemed initiated, triggering the 1-year bar rule. No other impeachment complaint can be filed against the VP until this same date in 2027. The House Justice Panel can now schedule hearings to determine if the complaints are sufficient in form and substance.
It really depends on the committee chair, Representative Luistro, kung mag-start na baka Monday na. And you know that just like yung impeachment complaint against PBBM, ang una munang gagawin, ang una munang tatalakayin would be the determination of sufficiency in form and substance.
ACT Teachers Party List, Congressman Antonio Tino believes the impeachment complaints against Vice President Duterte will hurdle the committee level. That is since House leaders endorsed it, one of them, Deputy Speaker Paulo Ortega.
Sarili po naming desisyon to. Actually, when I was with Manong Benny at sinabi niya na merong complainant, si Attorney Cabrera, nakita naman po namin yung complaint niya, which is very much similar po nung sa 19th Congress except for the Madriaga testimony. So, hindi naman po ako nagdalawang isip kasi nga nakikita ko naman po na very strong po yung basis.
President Bongbong Marcos and Naga City Mayor Leni Robredo were once again seen together, this time inside Malacanang. And that is for the launch of the Bagong Pilipinas Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program. Robredo was among the 200 mayors and governors who attended. But aside from photo opportunities, this meetup was largely uneventful compared to when they met at Naga City over the weekend for the inspection of Oplan Kontrabaha projects in the area. Both Marcos and Robredo insisted there's nothing political about the visit.
Iso muna, bago politika, marami pang kailangan gawin. The most political thing that we did today, I wore my pink socks. My pink socks in honor of Mayor Leni. Again, this is all politics. we're not going to discuss politics now.
Hindi ko kino-consider pag-usapan yung politika this early. Kasi ang dami ko pang trabaho gagawin. At marami tayo lahat trabaho gagawin. Gaya sa akin, kauupo ko lang bilang mayor, hindi pa nga 1 year. Para pag-usapan yung 2028, parang disservice naman yun.
Meantime, back to the program at Malacanang Palace earlier, the palace explained that it is to allocate 57.8 billion pesos for the Local Government Support Fund or LGSF. These can be easily utilized by LGUs for hospitals, farm-to-market roads, and other food programs.
Sa usaping pagkain, mula sa LGSF, mamamahagi tayo na 60 kilong bigas sa higit 5 milyong pamilyang Pilipino. Makakatanggap ang bawat pamilya ng 10 kilong bigas sa loob ng 6 na buwan kada taon. Sa tulong na ito, may maihahin na sa hapag ang bawat pamilyang Pilipino. Mas magiging maayos ang nutrition ng ating mga kabataan at kahit papano'y gagaan ang gastusin sa araw-araw.
Ang maganda dito, talagang nakalaan na yung pondo per LGU, ano? Tapos lahat meron. So, minus sa politika, hindi ka na magmamakaawa, hindi ka na makikiusap, hindi, nakalaan na talaga yung pondo. Tapos ini-empower yung LGU para kung ano yung kailangan ng LGU. Hindi yung may iba pang magsasabi sa amin na, o ito yung gawin ninyo.
Let's try once again News 5 Mindanao's Bril Montalvo, who will be reporting to us live from Davao City, the hometown of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Bril, how's the atmosphere there so far?
Ses, alam mo, kani-kanina lang ay abala ang mga Davaoenyo dito kung saan tayo nakatayo dito nga sa City Hall ground ng Davao City at abala sila sa panonood ng confirmation of charges hearing ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa ICC sa pamamagitan ng kanilang mga cellphone through online. At ngayon nga ay wala naman na naging activity dito sa City Hall ground at maging sa ilang lugar dito sa Davao City in support nga dito kaya dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Sa mga oras na ito ay tahimik na dito sa Davao City. Ses.
Pero meron pang mangyayari ng 9 o'clock, magre-resume ulit yung hearing. Wala na ba silang balak magsama-sama para panoorin yon?
Sas, alam mo, kaninang umaga pa tayo nakaantabay nga dito sa City Hall ground, dito mismo sa gilid ng Davao City Hall, para nga ating antabayanan kung may mga activity nga dito ang mga Davaoenyo at maging mga taga-suporta ng dating Pangulo dito sa Davao City. Pero wala tayong nakita ng mga supporters dito na nagtipon-tipon ngayong araw para nga sa ito nga ang isasagawang confirmation of charges hearing ng dating Pangulo. At sabi din ng Davao City Police Office ay wala silang na-receive na information na may isasagawang rally or activity nga dito, maging ang pro or mga anti-Duterte ngayong araw dito sa Davao City.
Sino-sino ba sa mga kapamilya, kamag-anak ni dating Pangulong Duterte ang nandiyan dyan? At sino naman ang pumunta sa Hague?
Alam mo, Ses, kanina nga ay nakaantabay tayo dito sa isinagawang flag raising ceremony dito nga sa Davao City Hall. At inabangan natin kung nandyan ba, present pa, si Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte at maging ang kanyang pamangkin na si Davao City Vice Mayor Baste Duterte, Rigo Duterte. Pero kanina ay hindi sila dumalo sa nasabing flag raising ceremony para mahingan natin ng reaksyon sana hinggil dito sa confirmation of charges hearing ngayon ng dating Pangulo at maging si Congressman Paulo Duterte. Wala din tayong impormasyon kung nasaan siya ngayon. Pero si Kitty Duterte ay alam natin na nandito sa Davao City pero no exact location kung nasa bahay ba siya or saan siya ngayon. At si VP Sara naman ay kanina ay nandoon siya sa Maynila. At may ka-meeting at sinubukan nga natin hingan ng reaksyon nga maging si Vice President Sara Duterte hinggil dito sa confirmation of charges hearing ng kanyang ama na si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, pero wala pa siyang tugon dito. At ngayong gabi lang ay nagpalabas ng statement ito nga si Davao City 1st District Congressman Paulo Duterte sa pamamagitan ng kanyang official Facebook page at kine-question niya ang International Criminal Court tungkol nga sa jurisdiction nito sa pagkuha or pagdukot umano kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte papunta sa ICC sa The Hague, Netherlands.
Kamusta naman ang reaction ng mga Davaoenyo sa unang araw ng hearing?
Alam mo, Ses, ay na-interview nga natin ang ilan sa mga Davaoenyo dito at mga taga-suporta ng dating Pangulo. At ang sabi nila, iisa lang yung panawagan nila na makabalik nga dito sa Pilipinas, especially dito sa Davao City, si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte at mabasura na ang kanyang kaso nga doon sa ICC. Kasi nga, sabi ng mga Davaoenyo na matanda na ang dating Pangulo, sa edad na 80 plus, ay dapat na umano siyang, ang mag-aaruga umano sa kanya ay ang kanyang pamilya at dapat wala siya doon sa loob ng ICC detention facility.
Daghang salamat, Bril Montalvo of News 5 Mindanao. And now let's discuss tonight's ongoing Duterte confirmation of charges hearing at the ICC with geopolitical analyst Richard Heydarian. Richard is joining us from The Hague. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Paul. Pleasure as always.
All right. Well, Attorney Kaufman brought up the geopolitical situation concerning drugs and how the Philippines has become a transshipment point. And he even mentioned China, for instance. What do you think of how he framed that argument?
Well, I'm not very sure about the stellar legal record of Attorney Kaufman, but I think as far as public relations skills, some would say spins is concerned, he is at the very least as creative, I would say, in his communication skills as Harry Roque. So I think, unfortunately, nangyari yung dream team ni Harry Roque and Kaufman. I think Harry Roque would have loved to be part of this. But this is a tendency we see, that whenever there's a setback, I mean, there were repeated efforts over and over again by Kaufman, the defense team of Duterte, to basically sabotage the efforts, to question the jurisdiction, to reveal the identity of the witnesses despite all the risks that it would pose to them, to find many ways to make sure that President Duterte will not attend this. They tried to come up with medical excuses. Basically zero ang kanilang record so far. And if you look at Kaufman's record at the level of ICC, it's not also the most stellar one, but it looks like he was the most skilled available one. And last time I checked, he's not also a very affordable a lawyer. So I think he's very good in terms of making sure he reframes this. I think he even had comments about some of the senators in the country being affected because they were named as co-perpetrators. So he looks like he's not only an ICC lawyer, he's a geopolitical expert. He's an expert on transnational crime. He's also an expert on Philippine politics. So very interesting to see this kind of versatile Renaissance man leading the legal team of President Duterte.
Richard, the prosecution and the counsel for the victims, Joel Butuyan, used President Duterte's words against him. But then, in defense, Kaufman said, he quoted a few lines and said that actually they have 35 speeches, that if they had 20 or 20 excerpts, they had 35 that would contradict what the prosecution is saying. What do you say to that?
Well, hindi ito ping-pong, no? At like 5 points, you have 10 points. We know that in international law, and also pagdating sa Pilipinas, the president is the commander-in-chief. So whether you made 10 speeches or 50 speeches or 100 speeches, kung saan, you implied extrajudicial killings. You implied the defiance of our constitutional democracy. It's not only the good attorney you mentioned. There was also other team from the prosecution team who mentioned, literally, they recited Duterte's quote, whereby he was, basically implying impunity should our police forces engage in extra constitutional or extrajudicial killings. So perhaps one reason why Harry Roque was not recruited to the defense team is because his own statement, Harry Roque's own statements back in the day against Rodrigo Duterte's record as a mayor and his threats to use extra constitutional means to enforce law and order, those could have been used against him. So dito, nakikita natin na sarili niyang mga statements ay ginagamit laban sa kanya dahil may saysay ang sinasabi ng isang tao kung siya ang presidente ng isang bansa. In fact, in international law, if your head of state says something on matters that concern your national policy, binding yan. So I find it quite interesting for them. I don't know where they get the 30, 40 other statements. Maybe sinabi naman, joke na naman daw. But the president has been quite consistent over and over again that he implied impunity, if not full backing, for police officers who would engage in what many see as extrajudicial killings in fulfillment of his so-called drug war.
Did you observe the proceedings from the courtroom?
I'm not in the courtroom right now, but because I didn't have time to register, but we're observing and listening online. And of course, we have some of our colleagues and friends, including from One News, who were there. Yesterday, also, we interviewed some of the lawyers, some of the folks who are involved in this, including the families of the witnesses, dito sa Hague. So we got a sense also of the mechanics. By the way, hindi today lang, no? It's going to be until Thursday. I was just talking to some folks in the diplomatic community kanina. It looks like there's going to be a break on Wednesday. So tatlong araw ito. So more or less this week, tuloy-tuloy ito. So we're just seeing the opening acts. But some would also see probably this is the beginning of the final chapter for President Rodrigo Duterte, because I think for any reasonable person looking at the gravity of the evidence here, looking at the muster of witnesses and everything that the prosecution team is bringing together, it looks like really an uphill battle for the defense team. And I'm not surprised that the defense team is coming up with all sorts of extraneous arguments in order to take away from the legitimacy and the relevance of this process. Dagdag ko lang dito, no? Ang ICC po actually under duress tong ICC na to, no? They have been facing stiff sanctions by the United States, particularly by the Trump administration, collective sanctions. So their ability to transact financially, their ability to get consultants and experts from the United States. I think even yung spokesman nila, umiba na. So this is an institution also under siege. Because the United States, not because Trump cares for Duterte, but this is because of the ICC warrants of arrest against Israeli leaders, particularly Netanyahu, na hindi natuwa ang US. So to see the ICC functioning, pushing ahead is quite interesting. But more importantly, for ICC, eto na yan. This is their grand prize. This is it. I mean, Rodrigo Duterte is probably the highest they're going to get for the foreseeable future as far as a high-level alleged mass perpetrator of crimes is concerned.
Richard, I'm just curious, are you there on some official business? Are you there with a delegation? You mentioned kanina na may mga kasama ka or nakausap kang mga diplomats and other lawyers.
I'm just a lonely academic and analyst who just happens to have all sorts of information. Kaya we correctly predicted that Duterte was going to get a warrant of arrest back in 2024. And also since last year, we have said that Bato and others would also be here. No, so obviously I'm here in my personal capacity, but because of my work on international relations, even international law to a certain degree, and of course my commitment to a rules-based international order, dahil tayo po ay galing sa Pilipinas, we know international law is something important to us, not only for the victims of EJK, pero para sa ating karapatan pagdating sa West Philippine Sea. So remember, yung PCA, not PCA, but the Arbitral Tribunal, which ruled on the West Philippine Sea, dito rin sila. So The Hague has been very close to the heart of a lot of people like me who have been following Philippine foreign policy and also how we leverage international law to protect our interests.
Okay, so what's the scuttlebutt you've been hearing there? How are others and from other countries perceiving this hearing, or this pre-trial proceeding against former President Duterte?
Well, I mean, obviously, if it's, I mean, the superpowers, right, are against the ICC. The Russians obviously are against the ICC because there's a warrant of arrest for Putin. The Chinese have not signed up to it and have questioned international legal instruments and regimes because they feel they're exceptional. And of course, as far as the US is concerned, the current US administration is concerned, interestingly, parang may strategic ambiguity sila. So they're against ICC, they're against ICC's warrant of arrest against Netanyahu, but they were for ICC when it was against Putin, and then they're basically completely mum on ICC's position vis-a-vis the Duterte case, right? But importantly, if you talk to middle-sized countries, middle powers, European countries, especially behind the scenes, you talk to diplomats and experts, lahat sila nakikita nila yung value ng International Criminal Court. And by the way, there's another court, the ICJ, International Court of Justice, which is also hearing a related important case, not to Duterte, but to the Gaza conflict case, especially allegations of genocide in Gaza. So this is a very busy town. It looks like a sleepy town, nice tourist town, but ito yung capital ng international law. But in many ways, this is also a contraposition to everything that is happening outside. May pagka-feeling bubble eh. Once you get out of here, then that's the world of Trump. That's the world of strongmen and populism and defiance of international law.
Richard, do you feel besieged there when you meet those who are rooting for the former president? In the presentation and opening statement of Joel Butuyan, he said that they fear some of the expatriates who are Duterte clones, to use his own words.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, I have friends from Netherlands, right? When I told them I'm coming over here, even the Dutch people are aware of what's happening here in a sense that they're hearing all of this news about very enthusiastic supporters of the president, camping here and showing their support for the president. As you know, last year, I was in the middle of a lot of controversy. There were people calling me names, etc. So some of the journalists faced harassment, not only online, but also offline. So these are tricky times. So I can imagine why a lot of witnesses don't want their, or the family of the witnesses don't want their identity to be fully revealed. And I can also understand why a lot of people who are directly involved in this, whether as court, as just judges, whether as prosecution team, and also representative of the witnesses, also may have some serious security concerns. So yun nga, meron nga tayong impunity sa Pilipinas, pero nandito na tayo sa Europa. Sana naman dito, meron tayong law-abiding approach to this. I think as a nation, and I'll tell you this, as an educator, as an activist in a certain sense, no? But analyst naman pa rin. I do believe we have to have a reckoning with this. It looks like in Davao, there's a kind of a silence, if not a moment of grief there. In other quarters in the Philippines, may excitement about this. But guys, at the end of the day, ang pinag-usapan dito isang presidente ng Pilipinas. So in a way, I feel ashamed. I feel humiliated. It took an international court to look into these allegations of mass atrocities. Nakakalungkot. At kahapon nakausap natin yung mga ibang abogado at saka mga supporters ng mga witnesses at tinanong ko sa kanila, bakit hindi sa Philippine courts? Hindi ba ideal ang conditions sa Philippine courts? And basically, as they said, and this was also said by, I think, Ombudsman Remulla kanina, di ba? Na binubura yung ebidensya. So our system was completely sabotaged from within during the Duterte administration. At unfortunately, that's why hindi tayo pwedeng umasa sa local courts, especially when dealing with chief perpetrators. Having said that, hindi naman pwede umasa lang tayo sa ICC for the rest of our lives, right? We have to build our own judicial institutions, but we also have to have a national dialogue. Bakit tayo umabot sa ganito? How did we end up with tens of thousands of ating mga kababayan na pinatay under very suspicious circumstances? Why wasn't there more pushback? Because to be honest, I believe if in any other mature democracies, you had tens of thousands of people getting killed under questionable circumstances, you would have had millions of people coming out in protests. And yet, for some reason, I didn't see that during our time. Call it fear factor or call it whatever else. But I have seen in many countries, including in dictatorial regimes, people coming out in droves, risking their lives when they feel the fundamental principles of their constitutional democracy and their humanity in many ways was under duress and besieged by the policy of the state.
All right, Richard, we thank you for your time and we're looking forward to some of the guests you may bring with you, especially to see, the European perspective also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So that was
Have a lovely day.
geopolitical analyst Richard Heydarian joining us from The Hague. And you're still watching The Big Story. When we return, we bring you more stories on former President more open and continuous diplomatic meetings. This comes after the Senate and the Chinese embassy engage in a very public spat on tensions in the West Philippine Sea.
Ang tumahimik naman na this past few days, sinabi ko naman na si Tariel is under sa executive, kami is sa legislative. Tapos I was telling them na meron tayong freedom of speech dito. It's under democratic process. So sabi ko, kahit mga leaders natin dito, sinusunog yung mga effigies, sana yung mga tao.
But more than this, Tulfo said Ching also showed interest in forging agreements with regard to cooperations and a code of conduct in the South China Sea. Tulfo said he was able to report these developments during today's Senate caucus.
Ang napag-usapan namin is yung they are very excited din doon sa code of conduct na tinatapos between China at saka ASEAN countries, Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, and Brunei. So hopefully by December matatapos na yon. So meron tayong code of conduct. Tapos isa pa, by end of March, pabalik na rito yung Memorandum of Understanding between the Philippine Coast Guard and Chinese Coast Guard na instead na magbanatan sila doon sa West Philippine Sea, South China Sea, magkaroon na lang ng cooperation like patrol, search and rescue. Every month, starting March, mayroong dialogue meeting kasama yung other countries na claimants sa West Philippine Sea, sa South China Sea. Ganon din ang China. So ongoing ito. Kaya sabi ng Secretary Lazaro, hopefully matatapos ito by December.
During the same caucus, senators also discussed LEDAC priority bills as well as Senator Bato de la Rosa's extended absence. It turns out that the Senate rules do not have anything yet on Bato's case. Senator Ping Lacson said a review of the rules should be in order and revised accordingly to include extended absences.
And here are other stories making headlines this Monday, starting with the leadership turnover over at the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI. Attorney Melvin Matibag took over from Attorney Angelito Magno, who only served for 4 months. Matibag vows no sacred cows in the agency's investigation into high-profile issues, including the flood control mess. But there are still questions about Matibag's impartiality, being a former ally of the Dutertes.
Let's address the big elephant in the room. Malagay ko, may gusto magtanong. Dati kung nasa kabila, ngayon nandito. Sana wala tayong linyang ganon kasi ang mga nanunungkulan tayo base sa mandato ng iyong ahensya, hindi dahil sa mga personalidad na naglagay sa iyo. Kung saan ako dadali ng ebidensya, doon po natin dadalhin yan. So kung mayroong mga mananagot na aking mga kaibigan, mga kapartido at kaalyado, dapat po nating papanagutin.
And there are 3 different stories circulating about the landfill collapse in Rodriguez, Rizal. Mayor Ronnie Evangelista and the landfill operator both claim only 3 people are missing, with 1 saved. And that survivor is saying that 20 of his colleagues are still trapped in the rubble, while the group Kadamay fears 50 people are buried beneath heaps of trash. Rizal LGU has already written to the DENR to investigate the incident. And in other news, the NBI has moved to add more evidence in the preliminary investigation into the plunder case against Senator Jinggoy Estrada and former DPWH Chief Manuel Bonoan. DOJ spokesman Polo Martinez says the NBI has until February 26 to furnish copies to both officials, and defendants have until March 9 to file their counter affidavits.
Human rights lawyer Joel Butuyan and defense attorney Nicholas Kaufman gave their opening statements earlier on day 1 of former President Duterte's confirmation of charges hearing. Butuyan is one of 2 common legal representatives designated by the ICC, the other being attorney Gilbert Andres. Butuyan asserted Duterte is the mastermind behind extrajudicial killings linked to the drug war. He claims that the former president had created clones of himself who have become, quote, bloodthirsty disciples that harass victims up to this day.
The arrest and detention of Mr. Duterte has not stopped impunity in the Philippines. The virus of impunity that he spread all over the country has become a cancer that has metastasized, infecting millions of Filipinos. Mr. Duterte has created clones of himself. He converted millions of peace-loving citizens into bloodthirsty disciples who have become converts to the belief that violence and killings are valid solutions to societal problems. The killings masterminded by Mr. Duterte continue to have consequences for the victims even to this day because of his clones. These mini Dutertes harass, threaten, or commit outright violence against the victims and their families.
Butuyan lays out why the ICC Pretrial Chamber 1 needs to confirm the charges. Among them, the confirmation will restore the dignity of the victims and save the Philippines from false information about the drug war.
Your Honors, for the sake of the entire country, which has been desensitized or made numb by the massive incidents of impunity and the glorification of impunity promoted by Mr. Duterte. The whole Philippines needs to know the real story during those bloody years. There has been no opportunity for the entire country to really find out the whole truth of what happened. It has been hush-hush, tidbits of sporadic news, and always drowned out by trolls who mass produce and broadcast false, fake, and fabricated news.
For his part, Kaufman made a contrast between Duterte and President Marcos. Duterte, he says, has kept his word no matter how novel his leadership style was, while Mr. Marcos reneged on his promise in dealing with the ICC.
From the heart, sincerely and truthfully. And what a contrast between him and his successor in the Malacanang. For President Rudy, his word was his word, and the people knew it. For President Bongbong, his word is for the wind, and the people will not forget it. Let me remind everyone of the letter which President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed, it's on the screen, and in which he gave a cast-iron undertaking that his government, and I quote, will not assist the ICC in any way, shape or form. Well, as we know, he failed to keep that promise. Rodrigo Duterte was unconstitutional and unceremoniously hauled off to The Hague.
And back here at home, families of drug war victims have gathered to watch the first day of Duterte's ICC confirmation of charges hearing. Let's hear their thoughts from our mobile journalist, Arles de los Santos, who reports to us live from Quezon City. Hi, Arles. Kamusta dyan? Anong event ang nagaganap?
Sean at Ses, nako, humigit kumulang 1 oras nga mula nang matapos yung tinatawag na Justice Watch, no? O yung online viewing na personal na dinaluhan ng mga kaanak ng mga biktima ng madugong war on drugs ng administrasyon ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Natapos man yung online viewing dito, pero nananatili raw yung alaala ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay na anila ay hindi nabigyan ng karampatang hustisya ang pagpanaw ng mga ito. No? Nagkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon na makapanayam yung ilan sa ating mga kapatid na pumunta rito, no? Ayon sa kanila napagkaitan talaga ng hustisya yung kanilang mga kaanak. May mga kwento rito na nangyari yung yung pagpaslang sa kanilang kaanak sa isang liblib na lugar, mayroon sa dump site at mismo mga pulis daw, no, mismo yung kumuha ng bangkay nito at hindi man lang nakapag-file ng kahit anong police report, no? Kaya daw 10 taon o 1 dekada halos yung kanilang hinintay para dumating ang araw na ito. Binanatan din nila Sean at Ses yung paulit-ulit daw na dilatory tactics o yung patong-patong na mga mosyon na isinampa ng kampo ni Duterte dahilan nga para umatras yung nangyari ngayong araw na confirmation of charges. Kaya para sa kanila, hindi pa man daw conviction ang nangyari ngayong araw at ilang at mahaba panahon pa ang hihintayin para nga gumulong yung paglilitis dito sa dating Pangulo. Tila nakikita na daw nila o naaaninag na ang liwanag at hustisya sa kanilang mga kaanak. Hindi raw sila titigil na ipagpatuloy yung kanilang panawagan dito at nagnanais nga na mapanagot ang administrasyon ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Kaugnay niyan, kanina nagkaroon din ng kilos protesta sa Boy Scout Circle sa Quezon City pa rin, no, kung saan present doon yung iba't ibang mga progresibong grupo at iba pang mga kaanak ng mga biktima ng drug war at anila baka daw panahon na, no, para nga muling sumali ang Pilipinas sa International Criminal Court kung saan ngayong araw ay naghain na ng resolusyon si Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sendanya para sa nasabing hakbang. Yan muna ang latest. Sean at Ses.
Arles, gaano karaming family members ng mga victims, no, ang sumipot? Nakita namin yung video mo, medyo naka-blur lang sila. Would you say more than 100 of them showed up?
At least, Sean, sa ating tansya ay humigit kumulang 70, no, na mga individual ito at mga kamag-anak. No? Kung tatanong man kung bakit nakablur ang kanilang mga face, it's for their security. No? Kasi ayon sa kanila, may mga nakararanas pa rin itong mga nakaraan na mga pangaharas mula sa kapulisan at ayaw daw nilang mangyari o magpatuloy yung ganitong mga sitwasyon. No? Kaya mas pinili nila ito. Pero alam mo, Sean, kapansin-pansin din dito, no, na may mga nakaalalay mula sa Rise Up at sa Duterte Panagutin Network, no, na mga kasapi ng kanilang grupo na isinasalin yung mga palitan ng mga statement mula doon sa online viewing mula sa The Hague sa the Netherlands. No. Ito daw ay para mas maintindihan ng mga kamag-anak ng mga drug war victim yung pinag-uusapan dahil karamihan sa mga kasama natin dito kanina ay mula sa marginalized sector na kung saan nagkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon na mahingan sila ng reaksyon. Mas naintindihan nila at mas naintindihan nila nila. And bukod doon, alam nila kung ano yung mga nabanggit doon, yung ilan agree sila, may mga ilan na hindi. At narinig pa nga natin na nung sinabi na hindi raw dadating o personal na haharap si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, actually nag-book pa nga sila, no, dahil inaasahan nila na harapin daw nito ni Duterte yung kaso laban sa kanya dahil buti pa raw siya ay nagkaroon ng due process, hindi kagaya ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay.
Ano naman ang naging reaksyon nila sa opening statement ni Attorney Joel Butuyan?
Yung ilan sa kanila doon, talagang uma-agree, no, doon sa mga opening statement nito, no, na yung pag-iisip nga raw ng publiko nagkaroon ng pagbabago, no, at kung saan nga nagkaroon ng pagkakataon na ibahagi ni NUPL President Efraim Cortez yung kanyang posisyon dito, na sinabi na wala daw na credible position na ipresenta ang defense doon nga sa mga kaso na inaharap sa kanila. At bukas at sa mga susunod pang araw ay magkakaroon ng iba pang online viewing, kaugnay pa rin ng confirmation of charges laban kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte.
Okay, Arles, nabanggit mo nga may mga follow-up pa, so we can expect na bukas, Thursday and Friday, meron pang gatherings ulit. So just to confirm, no, ang nag-organize ito ay yung Rise Up and Duterte Panagutin Movement.
Yes, Sean. Yung dito sa UP College of Law, to be specific kung nasan tayo ngayon, Rise Up and yung Duterte Panagutin Network yung nag-organize. No? Bukas, sila pa rin naman yung mag-organize pero gagawin yan doon sa isang lugar, dito pa rin sa Quezon City, sa Mother Ignacia. No? At meron din kanina kaiba pang mga pagtitipon na inorganize naman ng mga human rights group and advocates. No? Kabahagi pa rin syempre ng kanilang pinakainintay daw na confirmation of charges at paggulong ng kaso ni Duterte sa International Criminal Court.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyong ulat, Mobile Journal, Arlen.